Hey, welcome back. So let's get going here with the playthrough. There's a few things we have to do as part of, the setup sort of happens while we're playing. So I apologize if you jumped here for pure playthrough. There's still a little bit of setup to discuss, but first thing I want to talk about is I picked two characters instead of four. I really believe that with the deck management of this game, it's too much for a single player to control four characters. It's definitely doable. I know I'm going to be prone to making mistakes with just having two characters, let alone four. But I did compromise, and first of all, let me show you my characters. The first one here is Karen. So, do you see that face right there? That's, I need to speak to your manager. It's definitely a Karen face. I just love this character. So I definitely would pick Karen. She's a crossbow wielding, high dexterity. She's your classic rogue type. I mean, there was a Hobbit, which is even more classic rogue type, but the Hobbit never wants to speak to your manager, so we had to pick this one. Okay, so she uses these special snare tokens, which come in the game like this. There's 5 of them. Now there are miniatures that have snare tokens. There's these miniature snare tokens. Let me grab one real quick. That look like this, which are super cool. But there's only 4 of them in the game, whereas she comes with 5. So I wasn't sure what to do about that. I mean, I guess I could use 4 miniatures and just the cardboard for the 5th, but I'm assuming that is a feature, like, because there's traps in the game, right, that are against us. So I think it's meant to be used for those. But anyways, that's Karen, and yes, she definitely wants to speak to the manager. Okay, and then what I did as part of the compromise is I'm going to bring along an ally. So this is a cleric type, and he can move 5 spaces and either attack with his insight, which is like a cleric ability, or what clerics typically are powerful in, and insight and wisdom, and then choose a character and he can do some healing. So that's him. With her she has a crossbow that does green attacks, right? That's the dexterity-based attack, and she can exhaust the card. Discard 1 focus or exhaust the card. So she can attack multiple times, or she has to reload. Now, these little symbols at the bottom are for the altar dice, which we haven't talked about yet, but the altar dice are these. We're going to roll these, and this is like, if you've ever played Mage Knight, it's a lot like the mana dice. So if I have a die that matches that symbol, I can use it, but then I have to roll the die, and it could become something else. And so this is sort of like a bonus action you get to do if the dice match. So there's a little bit of dice manipulation in this. But anyways, that's her first item, and then the second one here is she has a trinket, which she can use to give heroes a focus, or choose a figure within range to move up to 2 spaces. Now, if you've ever played Brook City, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the difference between this and Brook City? Focus is the same concept. I think it's called, they're not clues, insights, but you know what I'm talking about. The focus tokens are the ones that you can convert into, hits or successes. In this game, obviously it's called focus, but the big difference between this and Brook City is you're limited to 5. So a character can never have more than 5. Whereas in Brook City, I remember having 13. Because some characters get bonuses by having, those tokens in their arsenal. I'm thinking of the Fargo one. She managed, those were like candy to her. Okay, so then the other character I chose. By the way, Karen is part of the original 4 expansion pack, the first 4. The other character, which is also part of the first 4, which wasn't intentional on my part, I just picked the ones I liked the most. Also, as you can tell, I went rogue and cleric with the last one, and now I'm going fighter. And so basically he's your paladin type, probably my favorite type of character to play. When I play D&D, it's usually a paladin that I roll. Rogue is actually the second most thing that I roll, but paladins are usually top for me. And anyways, he has a two-handed sword called the Sword of Ulrich von Liechtenstein. Name that movie. Somebody out there has got to know it. Ulrich von Liechtenstein. What movie is that from? He's the purveyor of... Oh gosh, I can't remember the quote. But anyways, Ulrich von Liechtenstein should give it away. You cannot equip an offhand card, so he's got a two-handed weapon. So he just can't have something in the other hand. He can do attacks with this, and it does not exhaust. And then he can't exhaust it if he uses this little bonus. Now, one thing that the rules are... It could be a lot more clear. So I know I can tell you that he can do this action and also do this like a bonus action, right? The rules aren't super clear about that, although there's no other way to interpret it once you sit down and really think about it. First of all, the description on how to do actions on a card are in 3 different pages of the rulebook. So it's not even all in one section. So it's a bit of a criticism of mine. Were it not for the fact that I watched the One Stop Co-op Shop video, I wouldn't be as confident in saying this to you, because I thought the rules were that poorly written. But the other part of it is, when you exhaust a card, right, that means you can't use it again. However, you can. You can use the action piece all the time. It's just this part that you can't use. And if somebody chimes in and says, no, you got it wrong, well, I'm going to blame the rules again, because the exhaust part just exhausts the card, so you can't do the bonus action a second time, but you can keep attacking and using the rest of the card as normal, even after it's exhausted. So that's a real quirky part about the exhaust rule, but it's actually identical to the way Brook City did it. So that's the reason why I landed on that. But there's some deviations from Brook City, so don't always make the assumption that just because Brook City did it, that's the way we need to do it too. Okay, and then he has a pendant, which is a trinket, and yeah, you can exhaust to do the top and I guess the bottom. Now this is another quirky rule. For example, to do this, you get to also do that, but since you're exhausting it, I'm going to assume that it's either or. You're either doing the top or you're doing the bottom. You can't do both. Because if you do the top, it's exhausted, and then when you get to the bottom, it's already exhausted, so you can't exhaust it again. So I'm going to assume that that's the way to do it, but gosh darn it, the rules could have just addressed this situation and been a tad more clear. So there's that. And then we get to Q. And of course, you guessed it. I had a rogue, I had a cleric, I had a fighter. What am I missing? I'm missing a mage. So this one, she can do a mage attack, intellect, or she can manipulate 2 of the altar dice, which might come in handy. So anyways, so we have 4 characters in the game. And I tried to color code them. So green, for example, is dexterity. So our... oh, I have that all messed up, don't I? That's not what I meant. Yeah, I was all bragging about how I color coded them, and then what did I do? I just totally failed on that. So here's your... there's the girl with the crossbow. That's Karen. Here's our mage. She's going to have the yellow. The blue is, wisdom and insight, so that's our cleric, and then the red is strength, so he's red. Okay, so there's our setup. Now we're ready to go. There's a lot of other things that you have to set up in a normal game, and you might be like saying, hey Jeff, how come you didn't do any of that stuff? Well, that's because we're playing a campaign, and you don't set up the rest of it in a campaign. At least not this one. So let me show you what we do. Oh, and I chose to put the stairs in this room. My attitude is I want to start in a corner and branch out. One of my gripes with these generic boards is that it doesn't matter what room you start in. Going into a room is just going into a room. There's nothing special about this room versus that one. I sort of like games where it's set up a little bit more, and going into the first room is going to lead into something magical about the second. That's the way D&D typically plays. This just seems to be a lot more of a random hodgepodge. But anyways, let's go ahead and do the... I'm trying to figure out the best way to read this, and so let's use my other feature here. And it zoomed in a bit, so let me zoom back out. Alright, okay, so this is... I'm going to try to read it from the monitor here. So, since the fall of the evil conqueror, Kretch, the untamed lands of... What the heck is that? Eradika. Alright. Everybody always has to have these hard-to-pronounce names. I mean, why don't they have places called Bob? Alright. Have turned from a realm of horrors to one of heroes. The vampire lords, known as the Thralls, have retreated to their castles, weary of the war against the invading Austrians, while the other warmongering creatures have slunk back into the ruins and crypts. I need to read from the book, sorry. That now litter the cursed countryside. The newly elected warrior queen of Five Holds, Valerie Wexton, has called for aspiring heroes to venture into the wounded lands in an effort to bring peace and prosperity to a realm despoiled of violence and horror. Eradika had suddenly become a beacon of hope that the allied people of Iceni so desperately needed after the brief yet terrible reign of Kretch. I am not keeping track of all these regions. But there was something more. The Queen spoke in depth with you about the fabled altars that had emerged in Eradika since Kretch's arrival. My scholars tell me they are tied to slumbering Leech Queen Zera. Man, we're being introduced to all kinds of names. None of them mean anything to me. Valerie informed you they delve deep into the histories to make connections to find answers to these phenomena, but it is up to the heroes like you to investigate them firsthand as we strive to understand their purpose. The day before your departure for Eradika, you received an urgent message from the Queen with instructions that its seal only be broken when you depart Middenvale. Choose a player to be the party leader. We're going to choose the Paladin. That player finds Valerie's message. Okay, so this is introducing something. We're playing the story mode, and the story mode uses these story cards. And there is a thing here that says, for example, story rules. Before you begin this story, read the introduction and Out of Luxon's story guide. That's what we're doing right now. During campaign setup, add this deck to the campaign pool. Players should not look through the deck. I mean, it's basically, you know, the things that happen to you. It's just, this is the choose your own adventure part of the game. And so, we're looking for number 2, which is, it's right there on the bottom. And by the way, they're all numbered. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So just don't look at them. The number 2, of course, is this one. So that's Valerie's message. And let's zoom in a little. I am pleased you have accepted this charge. Boy, there's a lot of reading in this. I guess it's a dungeon game. I would tend to this matter myself if I could, but my new office has its demands. Of course, it's because you're a wimp, you weakling. Show this message to no one besides your most trusted companions. When you arrive in Hawthorne, seek out a wanderer named Huey. See, now that's that's like Bob. Huey. The first of his name... It is Mayor Morse Bolton whom I trust most in the matters of your quest, but Huey is well-traveled and knows a thing or two about the fabled altars. The question is can he count votes quicker than Pennsylvania? Just be warned, he is viewed as quite the pariah in Luxon, and not without reason, but I would prefer to see him unharmed, so do keep your association with him unannounced. So the party leader gains control of this card, and you may exhaust it to discard one focus to change an altar die of your choice, which that is the only thing that matters as far as game goes, so it's just yet another thing we have to keep track of. But that's okay, we can do it. I chose 2 characters instead of 4 for that reason. Okay, so let me zoom this back out. So now... Okay, there's this part on the bottom which is really difficult because I'm not able to move my sheet. Let me... There we go. So you can see there's still a little bit more at the bottom. It might go a little off screen here, but I'll read it. The province of Luxon rests on the eastern border, serving as a gateway between the peaceful lands of Fiveholds and a world of danger and adventure. Since Queen Valerie's historic coronation, heroes have poured into Eridika to win glory for the newly forged crown, though many of those heroes had forgotten the Queen's own decree. So, right after poured is when you can't see. So, all able-bodied aspirants heed this call, the royal criers announced in Fivehold Village. Queen of Fiveholds and all Vicini has requested errants to carry out her will in the troubled lands of Eridika. She has vanquished Kretch and liberated all Eridikans from tyranny. But her quest is far from over. You were but one of many would-be heroes that answered that call. Thus began your journey into the town of Hawthorne and Luxon. The journey was astonishingly pleasant. The late spring makes for fair travel weather, and the Queen assured you were well provisioned. It wasn't until you had crossed through the mountain pass into Luxon that you encountered the first frocks. Now, frocks are those frog-looking things. Oh, there it is. See, I don't need to interrupt the story. Why don't you just read the story, Jeff? Just keep your narrative out. The frog-like creatures have crept far enough into the Fiveholds that you are no stranger to them. But this one moves awkwardly, not even hiding from your presence. It limps towards the main road, collapsing into the tall grass before reaching you. You sense some sort of trap. Okay, so this is the first choose-your-own-adventure part, and apologies for the glare there. But it says, do we approach the collapsed frocks to investigate, or do we continue quickly to Hawthorne before more show up? And then it's just explaining that when players are presented in options, we have to decide and read the corresponding entry. After reading any specified entries, players continue reading where they have left off. And you do have to agree. So if you're with a group of people, and I don't know, I guess the party leader gets to ultimately break ties. I would hope that your group can figure that out and not, get angry. But anyways, it says 26 or 8. And in the back of the book here is 26 and 8. So I'm going to do 26. Let's investigate the frogs. I don't care if it's a trap. I want to find out more about these frogs. I've never seen frogs be a threat to me before. So I'm just moving to 26. You approach the motionless frogs cautiously, preparing yourself for any ambush it might have served as a diversion for. Fortunately, late afternoon spring wind sending the surrounding long grass into a rhythmic dance is the only movement you notice. You bend over the fallen frogs to find her dead, various wounds adorning her scaly body. You pull out what appears to be a massive boar's tusk from one of the wounds. Raglanders, you curse under your breath, not wanting to wait around to see the pig vermin that gave this frogs its wounds. So it's pigs versus frogs. But before you depart, you take a brief moment to further inspect what is in the frog's hands. A jagged stone that gives off a faint aura of power. As you pack up the stone, you notice a chill wind and realize that it's much later in the day than you thought. You better make haste to arrive at a Hawthorne in time for some rest. So we add 3, the mysterious stone, to our journal. Now, when it says journal, all it's trying to say is that we now have a mysterious stone in our inventory. And journal is just something you use for packing up the game. So if we decide that we quit, and, we need to go do other things like life, go to work, stuff like that, you use the journal to basically catalog everything that your party has. So it's nothing, like from a gameplay perspective, it doesn't mean anything. But it does mean that we now have this mysterious stone, which I will use this camera for. So the mysterious stone appears to be, we can exhaust it to cancel an altar effect. The altar die is still rolled. Now, altar effects can be negative, and this is obviously a very good thing, since, and I'll give that to Karen, because canceling something that somebody else is trying to do sounds like something a Karen would do. Absolutely a Karen thing. So we'll give her the mysterious stone, and off we go. Alright, so now I gotta jump all the way back, and yes, it's a lot of reading, but we're almost done. No, we're not. We're not even close to done. Holy cow. Okay, so there's a chapter 1. All that was the introduction. And so now we go into chapter 1 here, and I guess it was easier to read in the other place. So let's do that. All right. Not very comfortable to move over and read this, but let's go. And sorry for the shade, that's me leaning over the light here. A cloudy morning breaks over Hawthorne as you waken the quaint inn at the orchard. Your rustic accommodations are just outside of Hawthorne's town walls. If that is what you call the meager stone barrier that protects the rural town against the otherwise tame landscape that surrounds it. You prepare for your scheduled meeting at dawn with Mayor Bolton, taking only a few moments to banter with the inn's burly folk-like proprietor and happily accepting her complimentary breakfast. So now we perform the first 2 steps of normal game setup, then each hero gains 1 focus. Okay, so this is where I was talking about that the setup sort of has to wait until you start playing. The first 2 steps of setup, by the way, are picking your heroes, which we did, and let me just make sure. Yeah, we place the game board and choose our heroes. That's the first 2 steps of setup. So technically, I already cheated by doing what I did. Now, we have to give everybody a focus, which is something that we don't normally start the game with. So anyways, that's these. So they're each going to get 1. And I will do that for them. And sorry, just cleaning up some things. Okay, so now that we did that, the mayor's estate is nestled in the center of Hawthorne, on the corner of town's main thoroughfare, and the next door to Smithy's shop called Westrick's Wares. Several crudely armored town guards nod at your passing, certainly keeping a close eye on you, but also clearly not surprised to see more travelers in these parts. The Queen's instructions were very clear. Meet with her close ally, Mayor Bolton, gain his support. Her more discreet instructions were a little less clear, however. You're unsure how pressing it is to find this Huey character she spoke of. But certainly he isn't worth keeping the mayor waiting for. So, do we head to the mayor immediately, or do we search for Huey? This is interesting. I don't know what I want to do. Now, if we head to the mayor, then it's 001, or we search for Huey, which is 18. Let's go for Huey. I mean, how can you not want Huey, Dewey, or Louie? I mean, there's Huey Lewis in the news, the power of love. All that stuff is associated with Huey. I mean, why would we not want to do Huey? So let's try Huey. So, time is of the essence, but you remember the Queen's instructions about keeping your search for Huey discreet. Choose one of the following. Ask a guard for a person named Huey. Spend some time searching for Huey yourself. Well, I guess since it's discreet, we won't ask a guard for a person named Huey. So we'll do 13. We casually join a throng of villagers, going about their morning business. You keep your search for Huey discreet. Each hero gains another focus. So I'm not going to complain about that. Starting off with 2 focus is a good deal. Alright, and oh, we're not done. As you pass through, make sure I'm not done with the other one. Yeah, I was done with the other one. Okay, as you pass through the small market on the square, please, the girl says gently, take this and let the light guide you. A hero gains the Potion of Healing search card. Okay, searches are interesting in this game. They obviously give you cool stuff, and there is a search card deck, which is this. So we need to find a Potion of Healing, which is that one. So you can heal 3 damage. No complaints there. I'm going to give it to the Paladin since he doesn't have the Cleric with him. And we are starting to get a giant, massive amount of cards for each character so far. We haven't even started the dang game. Yeah, it was a right call to not do 4 characters. So I'm just shuffling the deck, putting it back. This game, by the way, takes a ton of space. Like, even after putting away everything, I have one hero set up here. I have another hero set up there. And then this is other setup we're going to get into because I jumped ahead. But trust me, we're almost there. We just had to find Huey, Dewey, and Louie because that's the power of love. And let's get back to it. So you gladly accept and ask if she knows someone who's called the Wanderer. She giggles. That's Huey, she informs you. She points with a small thumb to the library near the mayor's estate. He's usually reading books or laughing at nothing. My older sister says he's lost it, but I'm not sure what he's lost. I'd like to help him find it. You nod to the girl, give her one of the silver currants the Queen Valerie provided you with, and head towards the library. So now we go to 22. I give them credit. This is definitely different than Brook City, and I like the choose your own adventure. I really do. And sorry for the glare. I guess I can move it over to the other camera again. Yeah, let's do it. As you can tell, I don't want to, but let's go over here. 22. You find the old man. Huey stooped over an enormous old book and piping hot beverage. Okay, greetings from the Queen, is it? Huey gives you a pleasant enough smile. He's a kind-looking old man with inquisitive eyes and the disheveled clothing of a beggar. But something about him gives off a curious sense of importance. He carefully explained to Huey about your purpose in being in Luxon. Oh, the mayor and I are fat. Oh, I'm sorry. My eyes aren't as good, and I'm trying to read through the monitor here. Are fast friends. Huey assures you, let us go see him together. So we add 5 Huey to the journal. All right, so now I'm going to grab card 5, and I got to move the book out of the way, or you're not going to be able to see it. All right. So here's Huey. We got an ally. I think you can have more than one ally. I don't think there's any limit to them. This ally may move up to 4 spaces, and then he attacks with the intellect. Or you may roll 2. So he's just like our mage, except not quite as good in the stats department. All right, so I will give that ally to... Oh, it really doesn't matter. I'm going to give it to Karen. That way she can demand to have 2 dice re-rolled. All right. So we add him to the journal, and now we got to go to 10. So there's more reading, folks. How many minutes into this are we? 27 minutes in. I probably spent, 6-7 minutes describing a little bit of the setup. And here we go. When you enter the mayor's manor, a tall, solid vampire descends the stairs, his long black hair cascading behind him. His dark eyes immediately find Huey, and the casual courtesy seems to fade from his pale face. Hello, Morse, Huey calls out almost patronizingly. I hear you've called together a council. The mayor gives Huey a polite nod, then turns to you. Thank you for venturing here so urgently. Mayor Bolton's voice is quiet and sharp as a razor. The Queen sent word of your arrival, and it comes at Hawthorne's most desperate hour. Please join me in my study. Okay, so I think we're finally done with all that. So now we continue to Chapter 3, Quest Setup. Oh no. No, I'm sorry. I read the wrong thing. So now we go back, and so just interesting. I'm one of those choose your own adventure people that I bookmark all my choices and go back and check. Had we just gone to the mayor's state immediately, we would have gotten to draw an extra card. So I assume that if you're watching me play the campaign, you don't mind being spoiled like that. But anyways, okay. Thank you, Susie, Morse says as his Boreafolk servant sets down a tray of tea and quickly exits the study, shutting the double doors behind her. The vampire turns his attention to you. Forgive the meager offerings, but things in Luxon haven't exactly been prosperous of late. Knowing the Queen, she has probably left it for me to inform you of the situation at hand. Since Valerie's coronation, restlessness has taken hold in Eridika, a vacuum of power, so to speak. There are many heroes like yourselves roaming the provinces, and while many of them are of similar noble intent, Others have stirred up trouble and increasing tension in each of the provinces. Here in Luxon, we are suffering the effects of these heroes. Press further west into Eridika. Alright, there is a whole bunch more. Morse rises from his chair and takes a rolled piece of parchment from his shelf and unrolls it to the table. Between you, he uses a pale finger tipped in a log-sharp nail to point to Luxon on the map of Eridika. Our province is nearest to Fiveholds, which works in our favor in many ways, but it also means we are the most removed from the happenings in Eridika. I can't say for sure what has caused it, but Raglanders have been driven out of the western provinces, maybe by valiant heroes, or maybe something else, and have claimed our province as their new home. If they weren't bad enough, our existing Frox problem has already gotten out of hand. Farms are raided regularly, travelers robbed and killed on the road. Now the Frox and Raglanders quarrel over the meager holds in Luxon, and my people are caught in the middle. The mayor soberly continues his report, detailing how one of his personal caravans was recently ambushed while bringing his family's heirlooms to Hawthorne from his old keep, the Harrows. My first task for you is to recover something of mine that was stolen by these Raglander wretches. Morse instructs, moving over to a satchel on the floor behind his luxurious chair. He places the satchel on the table. On top of the map, it is clearly filled with travel supplies, so each hero now gains one supply. So the supplies are these, and these are, they do multiple things. First of all, the supplies are considered to be in a public pool. So it's not that one hero has one supply, one hero has zero. Both heroes have access to two supplies, and it's not a possession thing. So that was one of the weird things, but I did catch it in the rulebook, that supplies are a community thing. Now, so supplies can be used for several reasons. Number one, you can use one to heal 2 health. If you're doing that, it's got to be a desperate hour kind of thing, because the supplies are more useful in the other ways that they can be used. The other ways they can be used is they can be used to add extra dice. So like, let's say you're attacking and you only get to roll 2 dice. You can spend 1 supply to roll 3. Or you're doing a test or whatever. So that's the first thing with supplies. The second thing is, that's the second thing with supplies. We already described the first thing, which is healing. The third thing, which is something I explained in setup, is if you can have 5 supplies, you can hand those in and actually get an extra level up. So your heroes can level up twice instead of once if you successfully finish the mission. If you don't successfully finish the mission, you can still spend 5 supplies to level up 1 time. And so we would need 10 supplies for both heroes to level up, whether or not they succeed. So I think, my goal is, my personal goal is I want to get to 10 supplies. It would be nice to get to 10 of these, so that way we can both level up. And if we have any extra above and beyond that, then of course we can use that for healing or whatever. So just the fact that we start off with 2, that's great. But remember, these are community property. Even though I have them in front of Karen here, this is more of like a community pool. So very interesting. Obviously not a Brook City type of thing, but I do like it. And let's keep going. So the mayor sits down again. Among the many things stolen was an urn, very decorative, filigreed in crimson metals. I need it returned to me. Leave the old tapestries and take whatever else of my treasures you recover as payment. Just bring me the urn. It is precious to me, my precious. They totally stole that from Lord of the Rings. Well done, brothers. Well done. Okay, there's a choice here at the bottom, which, because of the way I have this camera set up, I can't move the paper forward. So I'm just going to bring it to the other camera here, and we'll look at the choice. You may ask Morse or his personal guards why Morse or his personal guards can't. You may ask why Morse or his personal guards can't recover the urn themselves. If the mysterious stone is in the journal, we may show it to Morse. If Huey is in a journal, we must listen to him banter with Morse. Interesting. So we have all of these things. So it uses the word must. You must listen to him banter with Morse. So I think we have to do that. I don't think we get to choose 16, which sucks, because that's the one I was going to choose. I want to know more about the stone. Oh, let's go listen to him fight. Okay. Huey jolts suddenly in his chair, as if he had fallen asleep and just startled awake. Quite the tale, my pale friend. I hope you don't mind if I accompany our new allies on this most dangerous of adventures. I should very much like to see this urn for myself, he gives the mayor a playful wink. Morse fixes the old man with an icy cold stare, deigning to reply, Oh, don't you worry, Huey continues, standing up. With me along, your treasure is good as found. Let's just hope the thralls don't get to it first, eh? Huey's laughter is nothing less than sinister. Boy, why does the queen trust this person so much when he causes so much trouble? Alright, well, that's all that is. I would have really loved to have gone to 16. That's what stinks. But anyways, we didn't get to do that. That's okay. We can do that maybe in another playthrough. So we keep going. Alright, so we're almost done, folks. I promise you. But yes, this game has a lot of reading when you do the campaign mode, and just because I know I've already set up a couple of things ahead of time, there's still a bit more reading before we actually do a single action. So this is the playthrough, though. Part of playing it is doing this. So my scouts know exactly where the Raglanders are holed up, Morse says, motioning to a collection of hills on the map right outside of Hawthorne. Yeah, I was gonna try to do something to help people who really want to just see the playthrough and don't want to see all this reading. They could go to video 3, I guess, because we're already 36 minutes in, and yeah, we'll start that on video 3, and maybe I'll put in some kind of insert video to help people, or I'll add a comment to the first video. So anyways, here we go. My scouts know exactly where the Raglanders are holed up, Morse says, motioning to a collection of hills on the map outside of Hawthorne. It's close, much too close to my liking. Knowing that Valerie sent you to me, I fully trust you in this matter and have faith you'll bring back that urn. It's not safe out there. So then this is where we finish the quest setup. So finding the Raglander's lair with the mayor's map poses no real trouble. However, as you approach the entryway into an underground ruin, a cruel stench overpowers you. So it's telling us that we must each test, that's fortitude, 2. Okay, so that's the first thing we got to do. And then each hero that fails suffers 2 damage, because it stinks that badly. Alright, so what does, and remember when it says hero, it includes the allies. The allies count as heroes when it comes to stuff like this. So, that's the part we got to be really concerned about, because the allies don't have as much health. So let's start with our cleric here. So I'm going to zoom in a bit so that way you can see it a bit better. Alright, so that's the guy we have, and the stat that we're looking for here is this 2. So that's that orange, that's his fortitude, and he has a 2. And I'm going to put a cap on there so I don't want to write on my card. So that 2 is what we're doing. So what that means is he gets to roll 2 dice. But the test 2, which is on the card here, this test 2 means that he has to have 2 successes in order to pass. Now, let's say he gets 1 of the 2. He still suffers 2 damage, because this is not it's not a mitigation, I believe. I think it says each hero that fails must suffer 2 damage. So the only way you pass is if you get 2 successes. So what they can do is we have some focus tokens. They each have 2, which will help. And then we do have supplies that we could spend to roll extra dice, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, this guy heals us, so we can just heal if we take damage. So, real quick rundown. This is what a success looks like. Okay, so if we roll that, that's considered one success towards our what we need. That is a crit. So that counts as a success, and then we get to re-roll the die and add whatever we get when we re-roll, and it can explode as many times as you keep rolling. So if you keep rolling crits, you can just keep rolling. It's just like Brook City, if you've ever played that or watched that playthrough. This one is a success plus a focus. So if we have a focus, we can spend it to make it count as a success. If we want to collect a focus, we can do that instead. So it's you either take a focus or you can spend one to make it a success. You can only spend them when you get this on the die. And I think there's one here that's just a focus. So he gets to roll 2 dice. So let's go ahead and roll for him. And I just rolled, and of course because I'm zoomed in, you don't get to see it as well. So I'll zoom out a little bit there. And so what's very interesting is these dice are greenish. And let me just show you on the other camera. See, they're green like this, but see how they show up because I have a green screen. That's causing issues. So I may roll the dice for this camera and not use it on this one. So let's bring these dice over. So that's what I rolled. Oh, sorry. I'm not even... This is what I rolled. So that right there is... See, my biggest gripe with the game is the crit and the success look very similar. But this is a crit, and that's a success. So we've already gotten 2 successes, and then that's a focus. So let me roll again. And that's another success. So we've got 3 successes and 2 focuses. So the unfortunate part is allies cannot hold focus tokens. So let me look that up real quick to make sure. But I'm pretty sure allies can't hold focus tokens. So he had to just He had to roll successes on his own, and couldn't use. I don't even think he can use supplies either. Let's see here real quick. At the start of the quest, each hero controlling an ally places a token. Allies ignore the focus results on the hero dice when performing a test. Ally is considered a character when... Oh, I'm sorry. It's not a hero, it's a character. Okay, so we don't have to roll for the ally. My apologies there. So if you're screaming at me on the screen, it's well deserved. I remember reading that, yeah, that's not a hero, that's a character. So I just rolled for Karen here. See, she's angry because I got the rule wrong. And let's put her up there. So same deal. I had 3 successes, and now I get 2 focus tokens. So we grab 2 more of these focus tokens, okay? And that gets added, and she now has 4. I can show you there. She has 4. All right. So she made it through. And the good news is since we're doing only heroes, I don't have to roll 5 times. So let's get the other hero, and that would be Galvin. And Gavin also has a 2. By the way, I don't know if you paid attention, but Karen had a 2 as well. So the outcome was exactly what we were looking for. So I'm going to move this book out of the way so we can roll. Alright, that is a success, and then this is a success plus a focus. So we got our 2 successes, so we don't take any damage, and he gets a focus. So he now has 3. So that was a good start. We could have taken some damage in the beginning here, but we didn't, and that's all good. Alright, we did bring an ally along that heals, so that's even better. Okay, so that concludes the rulebook portion. So now we come back here. Alright, so this next part here, the search. Okay, so that's the quest deck we're going to use. We use Raglander's threat deck, and we use Gert as the villain deck. And it says the decks listed under quest setup specify which deck players should use, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I already set all this up for us, but let's go through it real quick because it's extremely important, and it changes the rules of the game. First things first is on the left side of the board here is the search. The search is the quest that we're on. So we're searching for something. And what the The search comes with some flavor text, but I'm not going to read it. You can go ahead and pause it. Okay. All right. Setup. When building the feature deck, shuffle together the altar found card and 2 other feature cards. Okay. Every game, since this is called Altar's Quest, every game has an altar card. I never looked at it. I just drew it face down. But we draw 1 altar card, and it's going to be a part of our quest. I haven't revealed that yet. But what this is saying is that there's an altar found card and 2 other feature cards, and they have to be put on the bottom of the feature deck. So the feature deck are these 3 decks. The one in the middle is the feature deck. So, sorry, I have to stand up to reach all the way across the table here. But this is the search deck. That's how we got the healing potion. Anytime we do searches, we're going to draw from this deck. The feature deck is like when we go into a room, we're going to draw a feature card because some feature is going to be in that room. It could be a fountain. It could be an altar, which is what this is all about. We're trying to find the altar. So what we did is I shuffled this deck and I drew 2 cards and I mixed it with the altar found card. So the altar found card is one of these 3 cards at the bottom of the deck. I don't know which one. That's the whole point of doing this. And so we just know that the altar found card is in the bottom 3. So basically, we got to enter rooms, search them, or we don't have to search them. We just have to enter rooms, reveal the feature card, and then I think we have to reveal enough rooms until we get to the altar. So the altar is always going to be one of the last 3 rooms we search. Otherwise, it would have been shuffled, and it could have been the first room you search. But for this particular quest, it's near the bottom. And then this 3rd deck here is the lurkers, and these are just generic monsters that can show up in the game. Okay, and you just shuffle those, and we will draw those if the quest deck or other decks are in the feature deck are empty. So sometimes lurkers will come out more frequently if we get through the draw piles of certain decks. Then the game sort of gets nastier, if you will. So, okay, let's finish this setup here. Okay, so then we remove each clue card from the quest deck. So that's what this pile is here. So how do you know it's a clue card? It says clue right there. So obviously that's at the bottom. There's other types of clue cards. These are all clue cards. I'm going to shuffle again real quick. And so we basically had to make a separate clue deck. And so that's what I did. And this is the cool part about the modular design, is if we played a different quest than this, it's going to have completely different rules. So that part I give them tons and tons of credit for. But the search, we do that. And then we shuffle them together, create a clue deck. Then we set that deck near the quest area, shuffle the quest deck, which is the rest of the cards, and set that near the area, and then flip this card over. So we flip this over, and this is our quest rules. If there is a 1-player quest tokens on this card, so since there's 2 players, the P means number of players, so you need 2 tokens on this card. And each hero is in the stairs tile. The heroes have found the artifact and win the game. At any time, a hero may discard any number of clues they control. Activate. Each hero who controls a clue card must either discard 1 focus for each clue card they control, or resist 3. If there is 1-player quest tokens on this card, each hero must draw 1 threat card. So this is what happens when this thing activates. So basically, this quest is going to constantly curse us or whatever, and we have to resist it. And then we also draw threats if there's quest tokens on the card. So how do we put quest tokens on the card? So I don't know how we put quest tokens on the card. That must come out in the other cards that we eventually draw. So that goes there, and it says if there is 1 P quest tokens on this card, we found the artifact and win the game. Okay, so here's the altar card. The deck's not very big, but you only ever draw 1 at a time, so it's an unstable altar. So activate. Roll all dice in the altar pool, then each Each hero must either discard, so it does some nasty things to you. I need to check real quick. Does this activate if we haven't found the altar yet? That's the real question, but that's the altar card that's going to be used in this game. And this is the drawback of not playing before. You read the rules and you think you got it, and then you're like, okay, hold on. I don't remember. So, in each game of Altar Quest, at least one altar card will be used in the game. They provide various effects even if the altar is not in play. The Altar Found feature card will place the altar miniature in the revealed room, uncovering the actual location of the source. When the altar miniature is in play, the altar card is treated as the feature card for the altar's room. Some altar cards or quest cards will have additional effects. Okay, so it happens no matter what. So that is important. Okay, so that is the search. So the next thing we do, and I also grabbed a bunch of door miniatures because we're probably going to need those. The next thing we do is, on the other side of the board, I have, well, let's start with this one here. I have Gert. So Gert has a deck of cards. You shuffle them, put them there, and then there's a miniature. This is the boss, Gert, and this is his scheme card. So the scheme card has a bunch of flavor text. Let me stabilize my hand here. Go ahead and pause. Okay. So activate. Each hero must either discard one armor token or resist 3, and then this time it's the cleric, the mental power, wisdom. Each minion gains 1 armor token whenever this particular die is in the altar pool. So this is what happens every time he activates. And just so you know, the other side is the villain card. You don't use this. Don't get fooled into thinking that this is his stats and all that stuff. You can add villains in the game to make it harder. So you can grab like other heroes or other enemies that aren't in the game and add them as villains. And then they would go into the villain deck, which we haven't talked about yet. So this is the only side of the card you use. So we place that card there, and this guy here, and for now, he's not in the game because we haven't discovered him yet. So then the Raglanders is the last section, and you can see there's a whole bunch of miniatures I have here. I'll go over those in a second, but the card for it is this one, and all right, so I'm going to pause. All right, so what this is basically saying is the threat tokens represent stench. So before a minion with threat tokens would activate, each character in its room must resist X, where X equals the number of threat tokens that are on the minion card. So these minion cards are going to get drawn. That's this deck right here. And when they get drawn, they're going to go into a player's threat area. So for example, Karen here has a spot. I know I need to move stuff out of the way, but she has a spot here for threats to appear. And those threats are going to be assigned to her. So if you're playing with multiple players, she would control these threats and that person would control those threats. But basically, if you're in a room, like tokens are going to go onto those cards and stuff like that. If you don't defeat them, then they're going to cause this stench and make you take damage, etc., per that card we just read. Now, when you take the Raglander deck, you're going to want to, any of these minion decks, you're going to want to go through it, because when you're choosing your miniatures, there's a couple of things. Well, first of all, there's going to be event cards. Don't worry about those, because events are events. They happen and they go away. So then you have this blooder. See the minion there? You got to try your best to look at the picture. And then I found this to be her. Okay? So she's holding that little grenade. That doesn't look like a grenade, but that's what I found. Looks pretty close. Alright, and then this one was interesting. It's a feeding trough. It's a trap. And believe it or not, they actually gave us a miniature for that. It's just a looks like this, but it's a bunch of gobbledygook inside of a. So I thought that was pretty cool. And oh, I'm sorry, there's the one with the grenade. Where's the other girl? Oh, this is the other one. So that previous one, this girl here, if you call it a girl, I guess it's a goblinish. So there you go. That's her. And then the grenade one is him. Okay? And then the last one is this dude. The cannibal who's eating a bunch of meat. So we got him. Okay? There's only 3 miniatures used. I did for fun look up another one, and it had also used 3 miniatures. So I think that's the thing. Every minion deck, or what do they call this? The threat deck, seems to have 3 sets of miniatures that go with it. They weren't too bad to find. You sort of have to keep track of which miniatures are from expansions. Like for example, this little symbol here means it's from the base game. There's a little there's like a padlock symbol if it's for the stretch goals that were unlocked, as part of the Kickstarter. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing that they put the padlock on that one, and it's in the unlocked position. So those are the Kickstarter ones, and then the Ruins of Arkenspire have another symbol. I can't remember what it is, but it's real easy to tell. And so if you can keep track of which boxes the minions or the miniatures go in, that does help. So anyways, you shuffle those and you put that there and you're ready to go. So we're finally ready to play this game. There's absolutely nothing else to read from Choose Your Own Adventure. This campaign upkeep, it occurs after the campaign's over. So or after the mission's over. So we can take this book and we can actually just set it aside. We can close it. You can do whatever you'd like. All of the reading and, time for that is now over. It's time to actually play the game. And my apologies, that's 57 minutes of reading and just setting up and explaining some components. One last thing we'll do is we'll roll these dice. So this is how it's going to look at the start of the game, and I'll let you take a quick look. We'll refer to that from time to time as we go, and thanks for watching. As always, stay awesome, and yeah, I'm going to close this out, and we'll start on video 3. So 2 videos in, and we haven't moved one space, but the campaign does add all that extra reading. Clearly, if you want, you could just skip the reading and go straight to the playthrough, but I thought that you guys would be interested. That's the whole point of doing a campaign. So anyways, as always, stay healthy and safe.